So let me ask you a question. All right, so tell me if and most time when you ask people this, no one never want talks about like what they're good at per se, but what they're really known for. So if I asked you the three questions, what are you good at? What can you improve in? And the last one, not so much as regress, but if you had an opportunity to do something different, what would that be?
Okay. What am I good at? I definitely feel like I'm good at reading the room and getting a feel for where people are at, and then being able to put the right people together. And that process of putting people together. Does that make sense? Like setting the table. My gift is definitely, having, emotional intelligence of where people are at and like people's agendas in a good and bad, like in a good way, and then making meaningful connections. But some people can identify it, but they don't know how to actually bridge that gap and get people to the right people. A lot of times I feel pretty blessed that a lot of times people say, man, if JG introduces me to someone, like I know it's the right thing. And a lot of times, like I just love connecting people, with the right people. It makes me happy.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful because a lot of times, whether it be a friend or whether it be, someone you've come more acquainted with, does not have the IQ or sensitivity to understand that. And a lot of times it's worse off if a friend come to you and they're seeking out a certain level of connection and network, and then you put them with someone and you realize, no, you're premature for that. And sometimes it's hard to have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like a buddy of mine called me one time and he was like, hey, can you get my son this job? And I was like, okay, job where? And he's like, well, Southern Company. I was like, Southern Company? I was like, does he have an engineering degree? And he's like, no. I was like, I'm like, well, does he have, no. And I'm like, well, there's some prerequisites here.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, look, I don't mind helping him with a job, but let's find a job that's going to be more applicable for his skill set than me getting him in the office. And then not only are they going to kick him out the office, but then they're going to call me and say, what the heck was you thinking? And so a lot of times I don't think people take that in consideration. So that's a very important value to be able to have the sensitivity to understand that, okay, and it's almost like the relationship with me and you. Like you connected me with Carson. And I just think even though it's a long time coming, but we stayed in touch and here we are.
Absolutely, my man.
So second question, if there was something that you feel that you could work better at or take a different approach.
Yeah, take a different approach. I think sometimes, I have this entrepreneurial attitude and like want to like move. I think sometimes I've learned later in my career that sometimes being strategic with the timing of stuff, even if it's delaying it, is really important. So I think that's kind of a critique of myself that I'm trying to get better at, is like understand you can't just move everything at the same speed. Some things are more important. Some things have to happen in a changed sequence, I think that's it. And I think a younger version of myself always wanted to like keep moving the entire to-do list down the path. It's to understand sometimes it's okay that certain things sit there because they're supposed to happen at a later date.
No, absolutely. This word comes up to me a couple of weeks ago called hurry sickness. And I didn't even know it exists. And what hurry sickness is all about, people never really enjoy the moments. And, it's like in business, we always want things going on, and we always got to have a lot of things going on. And sometimes we don't feel fulfilled if we don't have multiple things going on at the same time.
I love that. Hurry sickness. Yeah, so, I've been guilty of that.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of learning now. And as much as I try to reapproach it, I find myself saying, I could talk on the phone while I'm taking a shower, and I could do this while I'm doing. I'm like, man, just enjoy the freaking shower, man.
Yeah, bro. Oh my. So let me tell you something. I had a daughter. She's almost 2.5. She's a little under, and it's been the biggest blessing for me because I'm always so go. And my partner Bentley, she would say that. That's funny. It's funny that that's what you bring up, because you don't just because you can. Right, exactly. Be in the car with the family, but you're like slipping in a conference call. You don't have to. And I think I'm learning that sometimes it actually makes you, a lot of times it makes you better.
Yeah, it makes you better.
When you're doing something, you're way more intentional. And that people always talk about the power of no, right? Like understanding when to say yes, when to say no, and that's okay. And so I completely understand what you're talking about.
No, absolutely. I was I was down at the homeless shelter one day, and there's a few people there at the homeless shelter got my direct contact. And so this one guy, he walks up to me, and he realizes that, okay, there's three other guys here that has your direct contact. So he asked me for my number. I was like, no. And so he looks at me strange, and I said, because I don't want to fail the relationship. And he was like, you don't want to fail the relationship? I was like, listen, I was like, sometimes, I said, those guys are very flexible. Sometimes when they call me, I don't pick the phone up. Sometimes when they text me, I don't respond. And I say, they're okay with that. You may not be okay with that. I was like, so if you're seeking a certain level of attention from a friend, man, I may not be a great friend.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, you know what? He was like, I respect you and I appreciate you for saying that. He was like, because I've probably been blowing you up like every day. And I'm like, yep. I'm like, and you would have been getting like, because that, and that comes back to being more intentional about the things that we're doing. If I know, and my wife is a constant reminder, no matter what you have going on, you still have to be the best husband. You still have to be the best father, the best grandfather. Remember, you're still a brother. You're still a son. You're still a nephew. I'm like, whoa, like that's a lot, but I want to walk in the full fulfillment of if my sister needed me and she called me as her big brother, am I available to her? And a lot of times we're not. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on even more, of understanding that, yes, there's so many shoes that I feel, but I want to be intentional with filling those shoes because I don't want to fail my sister. I don't want to fail my mother. And I find myself sometimes doing it.
No, that's smart. Realizing the roles that you have that you're not really like taking into account from a bandwidth perspective.
Yeah. So regrets, and I hate to say regrets. But if that was one thing that you say, hey, I could have done that better, or I could have done that differently, or if I could go back and do it over again, I would do it different.
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, okay. I went to University of Florida kind of during the glory days.
Oh, the glory days.
I was there 2002. I graduated in 2006, and we won. Not we, but the school won national championships in basketball and football, 4 of them in 2 years. I stayed till 2009, having some businesses there, and now looking back, that I wanted to be in sports and entertainment. It ended up working out for me, but it's a long story short. Getting in sports, you basically most times have to have some sort of relationship with an athlete or player, because there's so many kids and people that just want to be in the industry. And I was lucky that I ended up having a relationship and signed Chandler Parsons, the basketball player. But looking back, even though I was making pretty good money in Gainesville, I think I could have left a year or two. And sometimes just because you're making money, if it's not really pursuing the goal of like your long term, because I always knew that I wanted to be in representation and build a media and entertainment company. I look back and think I would have like gone sooner. And I think I give a lot of people that are looking to get into the industry like 2 things. One, while you're in college, build as many relationships with athletes and players and people and network your ass off. And then 2, go be the assistant, go be the assistant's assistant to the person that the job you want in your career, right? Yeah. So you want to be film and TV producer, find out, who that person is and find out whatever job is, right? Like sometimes I think people get so confused of like, you have to get certain jobs to get this career. The truth is you just got to get close to the decision maker of the job you want and ask them to mentor you. Yeah. And I think that's kind of looking back something I wish I would have done sooner. I should have thought about the long-term strategy than living the short-term kind of fun of it.
Yeah, man, I like that. Let me ask you a question. Early on, you talked about your daughter, and then obviously we know what you're doing today, a little bit about what you're doing today. So I got a question here. So a lot of time we talk about faith, family, influence, and you've kind of already hit on all 3. But let's talk a little bit about okay, you have a daughter. So let's talk about your why now. Because obviously, whys can change throughout seasons in our life. You know what I mean?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. She definitely gave me my why. But the other side of my why is and this is the truth, I do everything I do. I love business. Gary Vee once said, he's my former partner, said, business is the greatest sport, because it is a sport. At the end of the day, everyone's got an agenda. Everyone's got the game we're all playing, especially in the media and entertainment. But my why, the truth is I want to continue to be very successful, because I believe that the people that, have, made very, you got to determine your success, but I'll use the term successful. People, when you get to a certain place in the entertainment industry, you can really help the people around you a lot more accomplish their dreams, right? I don't want to say a status thing, but certain people in this industry can snap their fingers. And if a friend wants an entry-level job, they're getting an entry-level job, For me, a couple whys. One, making people proud, making my family proud. My dad didn't graduate college and did very well in the Burger King franchising, became Burger King Franchisee of the Year 2011 and 12. To me, coming out here and getting into this and doing it from the ground up, part of my thing is really continuing to elevate my name, my family's legacy, and helping create a greater platform for the future generation of my family.
Wow, man, that's a powerful why. That's a powerful why, because I always talk about giants in the earth, and when I think about giants, I think about legends, and you can't talk about legends unless you talk about those individuals who create legacy.
Yep.
And I'm like you, when I think about my why, I was raised by my grandmother, my mom, and my older sister, and I always think about my why is to make them three proud. Yep. And so I get up every day.
That's got to be it. I mean, money's going to come and go, but if you understand that, and if you lead with your heart and really giving that legacy and making the people in your family behind you better, that's amazing, and giving opportunity. Yeah,
I mean, and it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling. Yeah. I mean, and I know a lot of time when you talk about serving others, and a lot of people man, I don't have time for that. But if you stay humble, then you'll be exalted. And the greatest amongst will always serve. And that's I said this early in the show, the responsibility of having the opportunity to control how people feel when they're in your presence, or how you make people feel when they leave you. And those are the things that my mom taught me well. She was like, you have the opportunity to control how someone feels when they're around you. So when that person leave you, would you like them to leave you angry, sad, or peaceful and happy? And I'm like, no, I want to leave me peaceful and happy. So then I get the opportunity to do something different and make a large impact on every individual I come in contact with.
I love that.
And so one thing I want to talk to you about, talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now and why you're doing it.
Sure. Building my company, we have a couple areas. We have a management business, we have a consulting area, and content. But I would say right now, the primary thing the company is focused on is really being a leader in the name and image likeness space. Why am I doing it? I've loved sports my whole life, and the opportunity to advocate for athletes at a younger age and help them build their platforms and really find financial security at a younger age, I find it insanely fulfilling. Yeah. That to me, always love sports, always love representing talent, but the ability to help change families' lives and do it from a place of something that I really am passionate about has been one of the most fulfilling experiences ever.
Wow, man. Talking about NIL, when I say this, I'm like, what is the three most hot topics in America today? Re-electing Trump for president, NIL, and transfer portal.
Transfer portal, dude. It's and by the way, happy National Transfer Portal Day yesterday. Man, I've been in it for 4 years before it even started. I bet that this was going to be something, and I'm having a lot of fun with it because I love college sports, you know, and the opportunity to help and impact people is tremendous. And, I think it's kind of the reason I think people loved pro sports is because there was a business element to it, right?
Yeah.
Now there's a business element to college sports, and it provides a lot more people to be connected to the, what happens on the field. There's a lot of other outcomes for people after that. And that brings eyeballs and attention to it.
So, no, absolutely.
And it provides a lot of opportunity. People once said where there's chaos, there's opportunity. And I'm living right at the heart of that. That's for damn sure.
Let me ask you a question. So if you had a side, or you can give us a perspective on, because if you talk to the athletes, it's all good. If you talk to the coaches, it's all bad. And you're like, okay, there has to be a happy medium here.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's real interesting. Looking back on it, or just in general, I think that we had NIL come in, but we had the transfer portal happen the same time.
Yeah,
that changed a lot. It basically put everything into full free agency at all times. So, what I do think, here's the bad. The bad is kids and athletes that can't separate that getting money is success.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal is going pro or achieving success. They get confused that someone gives them money to go to a school and they're now achieved their goal. That's not, so I think we're having, definitely there's some athletes that might have been motivated to make it further that are not going to. The good, I think there's a lot of families that are receiving blessings that might have never had the economic status of this. And I hope that that's creating a whole platform for families and people that might have never had it. And I think that's a blessing.
No, that is a blessing. But, going back to, it's very important to understand the stewardship of financial opportunities, because I say this all the time. On this side of life, the financial independency that I've gained just through the grace of God, if I had gained 20 years prior to, I would be broke.
Yeah.
Because, things that impressed me 25 years ago no longer really impress me. I mean, I like nice things still, don't get me wrong. But the stewardship of understanding there's a time, there's a season for those things that are nice.
1,000%.
Yeah. And
time and place,
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but let me ask you a question. Going back to a lot of these kids, and truth be told, you got in college sports, 60, 75, I would say 65, 70% are African-American kids. Don't know the statistics of how many of those come from, whether it be social, economic, impoverished communities that really understand like the tax behind the money being taxed. I don't know if in college, do they do tax in each city you play in, like the NFL and the NBA, or I don't know, is that different?
That's a great question.
Okay.
The first couple of years they didn't put that into effect.
Okay.
They're starting to, and I think it's, like you said, very important. Some schools help them with their taxes and understand the collectives putting certain money away. Some don't. But I think exactly what you're preaching on is important.
Yeah, I think it's very important because, again, it was very cliche, but I used to always hear, would you like me to give you $1 million to teach you how to make $1 million? And most people are like, oh, just give it to me. Because if you give it to me, I can make. No, you can't. You don't understand how to make another $1 million. Yeah. I mean, you opt out of learning how to make another $1 million because you want someone to give you $1 million. And so a lot of times with these babies, if you're giving them that kind of money, and if you look at, the backdrop of what did they come from, have those parents been exposed to, words like annuities, words like, CD, I'm just saying, because a lot of times when you start looking at money and dealing with money, it's not just a savings and checkings account. It becomes far more extended, greater, and more in depth than just talking to a business or personal banker. But do these parents even understand, yes, you got that financial opportunity, but how do you manage and stewardship that?
1,000%. I think it's super important. I think you're seeing more, business management and wealth management people thankfully get into the space, but I think initially, people were hesitant or, candidly didn't feel like the finances were there. But I think a lot of these top talent are getting the right people. The people that came from pro sports are now paying attention and they're getting into it.
I can see that. And kind of going back, and I know we don't have much time, but I would like to bring this out. Going back to from the coaching perspective, I hear the coaches say they don't have enough time with the athletes now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the bad. I think if you're a college coach, this has got to be the toughest thing you've ever. I think bless them, because it's a lot easier to be a pro coach than it is a college coach right now. Yeah. And so, I'll just, you said, ask me the good and the bad. I gave you the good. I think the bad is, it's a lot more strenuous and you're constantly recruiting the kids back, and I think it's an imperfect system. I think some regulation will come. I think it's going to be a couple years before they actually get everyone on the same page, potentially sooner. But it's a state-by-state situation currently. So, I definitely feel for some of these coaches who are just out there. They're doing it for the love of the game,
Yeah, I was listening to our former Kentucky coach, Coach John Calipari, and he was talking about, hey, welcome to NCAA basketball world. But, again, having to go recruit 15, 16 basketball players is different from a 100-man roster in college football.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to rebuild, that program.
Let's be honest. The basketball side was always kind of doing what they've been doing anyway. The football side's a whole different beast.
Yeah, exactly. So last thing I want to jump off into before we close it out, what's next for you? You got a lot of great and incredible things going on, but what's next for you? And what's your thoughts on how you